Hello everybody, this is Dr. Ariella again, coming to you almost live from Hawaii. In this video, I'd like to talk about Chapter 11 in Myers on attraction, one of my favorite topics, loving, intimacy, relationships, the need to belong. So again, some really fascinating research about wanting to feel needed, needing to belong, things like that. He has some great research about, on page 383, about cyber ostracism, that people even felt this yucky feeling, whatever you want to call that, when they were ostracized or shunned by people in a cyber world environment. That's amazing. Ostracism, he says, is a real pain. Even researchers, us scientists who are supposed to be more rational and able to, figure out that we're actually participating in an experiment, when they participated in an ostracism experiment, felt yucky. Temporary concern, anxiety, paranoia, general fragility of the spirit. Wow, that's amazing to me. So some great information about the different things that have us be attracted to others and others attracted to us, such as proximity. On page 385, I want to point out that there's a sentence where he says, now that they live in gender-integrated residence halls. Well, that's incorrect. It should be now that they live in sex-integrated residence halls. Sex is about female and male. Gender is about traits, behaviors that we exhibit. Anyway, so another fascinating piece of research on page 387, that people preferred whichever words they've seen most frequently, and that people have a preference for names that are similar to theirs, like the letters of the alphabet. That familiarity does not breed contempt. I thought that was great. And that he discusses exposure breeds pleasant feelings. The section on the focus on liking things associated with oneself I found fascinating. It talks about the self-serving bias, which was discussed. We talked about a little bit in Chapter 2. An implicit egotism, that things that we associate with ourselves we tend to like more. And that people who are named certain things are overrepresented in those fields and things. Fascinating. Just fascinating. He talks about a phenomenon of the mere exposure effect, and that prejudiced people often feel fear when they are confronting those who are different, and fearful or prejudicial feelings are not always expressed stereotype beliefs, but they arise later as justification for those feelings. And he talks about the mirror image. Anyway, some really fascinating things. The mere exposure effect, oh yes, and candidates, talks about how because of the understanding of the mere exposure effect, people who are promoting particular politicians, they have replaced reasoned argument with brief ads that hammer home a candidate's name and soundbite message. So we looked at influence in an earlier chapter. Well, here again we're looking at the influence of just the mere exposure effect. Then he talks about physical attraction, matching phenomenon, the physical attractiveness stereotype. Even 3-month-old infants who have not yet been tainted by Baywatch reruns prefer attractive faces. So, very fascinating information. The beautiful is good stereotype is quite amazing to me. And oh yes, on page 398, it's got a cartoon at the bottom. Warm and likable people seem more attractive, and it's discussing, how a cheap method to enhance your attractiveness, which is basically to smile. And cognitive therapists have known about this technique for a long time. People who are depressed or feeling down, if they just practice smiling for X number of minutes a day, they tend to feel better. So it's not only about attractiveness, but also about feeling better. So, they could definitely go together. If you feel good about yourself, do you feel good about others? On page 401, he discusses cultural diversity and how that may be the major social challenge of our time. And we've had a little bit of quite a few people in the class have discussed stereotypes and discrimination and this concern about this perhaps major social challenge of stereotyping and discrimination and prejudice against people who are not like us. So I found that interesting in that several of you have already raised that point. On page 402, liking those who like us, we are sensitive to the slightest hint of criticism. And I know how that works, unfortunately, all too well. Some information on page 406. Again, the good feelings evoked by the elegant surroundings transferred to the people being rated. So if you're evaluating someone or, providing information about somebody, what are all the influencing factors that could be contributing to your evaluation of them? Is it just your environment? Or how much does your environment actually play a role in the evaluation? Discussion on the different types of love and attachment. The attachment styles information on page 414. Again, as I mentioned before, I was a trainer for foster and prospective foster and adoptive parents, and one of the things that we discussed was the range of attachment that a person could have. And so if someone is on the end of secure attachment, then they're going to have certain reactions and ways of thinking and believing about certain things. But if they're on the other end or somewhere else on the spectrum of attachment style, then they're going to have different needs and wants. And so it can be helpful to understand what attachment is and where someone might be and some of the symptoms they exhibit when they have not had a secure attachment background in their childhood. So I certainly found this chapter to be fascinating as someone who's been involved in many relationships and is very curious about those sorts of things. The internet, I think about the internet and his discussion about the pros and cons of it on page 418, 19, and I think about that related to classes that are online too. So you'd think about that. All right.